Hello and welcome to a very special show on the US election live from Philadelphia. I'm Gauri Dwivedi, and over the course of the next 30 minutes we'll take you through each and every detail, given that it's now 48 hours left for US elections. First up, let me tell our viewers that Philadelphia, which is in Pennsylvania, is extremely crucial for both the candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Pennsylvania puts up 19 Electoral College votes up for grabs, and that could essentially be the difference between victory and defeat. Today, Donald Trump was in the outskirts of Philadelphia, and Kamala Harris is set to make a last-minute ditch for Pennsylvania tomorrow evening, just on the eve of elections. So how does this add up, why it matters, and why should you, the viewer, know every detail of US election is exactly what the next 30 minutes will be all about. But first up, let me get you some interesting voices from young voters. They're also all Eagles fan, as you can see. There's a big Eagles match today in Philadelphia, and I'm going to be asking all of them that there's a woman on the ticket. Does that mean she is winning?
I hope so. Yeah, we're not voting for her just because she's a woman, but it's great to have representation. And yeah, we hope she wins.
What about you? You know, the fact that there is a woman on the ticket, but that doesn't guarantee that she's getting all women votes, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I think people, and women in particular, should be thinking about what this election means for our rights and our own rights to our own body, as well as just like the political climate and the safety that we have in the world. I think it's really important to be considering that for this election.
How important is reproductive rights or abortion in this election? You know, I know you're all young girls, it matters to you, but you've also been talking to your families, your parents, your brothers, your friends. Is this one of the biggest issues this election?
I think it is. I think we all know women who either have had an abortion or have had to consider one. So I think it's really, and for just like their safety too. So it is really important.
Mm-hmm. And could that be the biggest deciding factor for women across America?
It could be. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I had one Eagle fan about an hour back telling me that if Kamala Harris was on a Republican ticket, she would have got my vote. So it's not that simple.
Yeah, I think her competitor, Donald Trump, also represents just chaos and disruption in the community in the world, and fear. And I think I was reading something yesterday how the U.S. is ready for peace and just to get along. And I think having someone not only who is for reproductive rights and for helping communities and building communities, but also someone who is able to really bring together Republicans, like the Senate and so forth, I think is really imperative at this time in our country's history.
You know, you're talking to an Indian channel here, and the one thing that we all think about sitting in India is that Kamala Harris is half Indian. Yes, she is half black, but she's half Indian. How much has her Indianness mattered in these elections?
I'm not actually quite sure. I know with America, we have such a history with black versus white, so I think she embodies, she can embody it with certain populations of voters, maybe. For me, I think it's great that she is multicultural, because that's what the U.S. is all about, and embracing everything that, that you are. But yeah.
But did people know that she's half Indian till the election?
I did. Yeah.
Donald Trump made sure to talk about it.
Made sure we knew.
Yeah. And what, in terms of your families and, your parents, your friends, what are they thinking about this election? Because, Donald Trump does have a lot of support. It's an election that's going down to the wire. Clearly, people find resonance with what Trump is saying and Trump is advocating. So what are families saying, those who are supporting the Republicans? What is it that matters to them in these elections?
I think it's a lot of that fear-mongering. It's when Donald Trump speaks, he really says the scariest things possible. So that
like what?
Gosh, like saying the world's going to end anything. And I think it really, people who are scared, they feed into it instead of checking the facts behind a lot of things.
But he's been saying about immigration. He's saying that illegal immigration should stop. I would assume that American citizens would be okay with that, or?
I think that's a hard question. I think, immigration is also a big topic, considering, Kamala was tasked during her
Vice Presidency.
with immigration, and it was looked at as somewhat of a, letdown. However, I think it's a topic that's worth noting and understanding. However, like, people coming into America often are seeking refuge. And so I think just saying that no one should come is, for me, a hard pill to swallow. I think we're a country built off of welcoming people and really working towards building, safety and community throughout many different cultures.
We're in Philadelphia. According to you, what is the single biggest issue here in Philadelphia?
I think probably poverty. It's a very vibrant city and it has a lot of character, and I think we have a lot of unity, but there is unfortunately a lot of poverty, which can make a lot of Philadelphia very dangerous. Like a lot of gun violence, a lot of drug violence. So I think that is maybe probably the biggest issues for me. I would like to see it get solved.
Lastly, have all of you voted, or will you be doing?
Yes, we did.
We voted.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV, and wish you the very best. In 2 days, we will know whether your candidate is winning or not.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go Birds.
Thank you. Go Birds.
All right, you heard those Eagles fans, and of course, all of these girls have said that they've voted. Remember, early voting trends have beaten records in this election. And before we go any further, talk about the gun violence issue that was raised in this conversation, let's first listen into Donald Trump, who was, as I said, making that last-ditch campaign stop in Pennsylvania. Listen into him. We come back and talk more.
And I've come today with a message of hope for all Americans. With your vote on Tuesday, I will end inflation. I will stop the invasion of massive numbers of criminals coming into our country. Thank you very much, Kamala and Joe. And I will bring back the American dream, and we'll bring it back stronger than ever before. But this is all you need to know. Kamala broke it, and we will fix it, and we're going to fix it fast.
All right, let's also now tell our viewers, why is gun violence such a big issue? America has the highest per capita ownership of guns, and that is in fact rising, with more people now owning guns, saying that this is nothing but it comes back to their basic right of self-defense. It's also an issue that has deep political colors. Democrats are completely against any gun ownership, whereas the Republicans feel that this is an infringement on the citizens' right to defend themselves. How does this add up? What does it mean for the average American voter ahead of that crucial election? Take a look at this report. We talk more after that.
Enough is enough!
The United States has one of the highest ownership of firearms per capita. Some statistics suggest that 120 firearms per 100 people is what US residents have. And in the last couple of years, 7.5 million new owners of firearms have been added to this pool at a time when there is a lot of talk about gun violence, ownership of guns, and the political color that this entire debate takes place. Something that forms at the heart of the political debate taking place around the United States. I am in fact in front of a major showroom of Beretta, a company that is an American arms manufacturing company, and I went around to see as to how easily guns can actually be purchased. Viewers would like to see some of those footage that we will play out that shows the kind of firearms that are being sold in downtown Manhattan, downtown New York, in a particular store where there are not just men but also women, as well as even children can go there. It's not an age limit there. And firearms that we are talking about are those which are used for hunting purposes in the wild. How easily such firearms can actually be purchased in downtown New York tells you the risk that is there as far as gun violence is concerned. And any number of debate about gun violence essentially becomes a debate about the political aspects of it. Republicans against any ban whatsoever on gun ownership, Democrats in favor of it. But at the heart of it is the political color of a debate which is essentially about human lives ends up ensuring no progress whatsoever. But our viewers would see some of those images and those videos to understand how guns can actually be purchased in America. Reporting for NDTV, this is Gauri Dwivedi in New York. All right, let's get in a pollster to tell us what does it look like 48 hours ahead of that contest, a crucial contest. David Charles, who's an American pollster, joins me on the broadcast. Good to have you, sir. Let me first ask you, what's your reading of the situation? It's as neck and neck as it gets. How do you read it? Can you, in fact, pick a winner in this?
Okay, my current reading at this point is that it clearly is too close to call. First, remember, in the national popular vote, it's very close, but the national popular vote doesn't mean anything in the United States because we don't elect presidents by national popular vote. The race is down to about 5 to 6 or 7 swing states, where again, the race is very, very close at this point. Polls are suggesting that maybe at this point, Harris has a very, very slight lead in those critical swing states, but all of this is within the margin of error. What we should be looking at in the next 48 hours, as we should be looking at from the last few days, is where are the candidates spending their money and resources? They're spending their money, if you're in terms of those critical swing states, but specifically, Harris has been working on the get out the vote strategy and mobilizing voters versus at this point, Trump seems to be putting more of his resources into litigation and potential legal challenges. So that may be telling us something about how the campaigns view their prospects at this point.
David, what about specific states that could actually throw up a surprise? We've been talking about swing states, but what about any surprises? Maybe Michigan, which has a large Muslim American population, given what's happening in West Asia right now?
I do. So if we think about it, the states that are in play, it appears to be, are Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. There's some evidence that maybe a couple of other states are in play, but those are the core ones. But among those, it is really Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Those 3 states in 2016 voted for Donald Trump and he won. Those 3 states voted for Joe Biden in 2020 and he won. Those I think are really the core swing states at this point. And if we had to isolate it even more, it really is Pennsylvania. It becomes very difficult for Kamala Harris to win the presidency if she does not win Pennsylvania. It's possible, but difficult for Donald Trump to win the presidency without winning Pennsylvania. But in many ways, it's going to really come down to that state. But it's going to come down to within those states, collectively, across all those swing states, I've been arguing that about 150,000 to 200,000 swing voters will decide the election. And in the closing days, in these closing days of the election, it's going to be regarding whether or not women show up to vote, and especially female voters under the age of 30. If those 2 groups of people show up to vote, Kamala Harris wins the election. If they don't show up in sufficient numbers, Donald Trump wins the presidential election.
Yes, indeed, it is about getting your voters to the polling booth. But, staying here, the sense I get is there's also a lot of emotions playing out. There's a lot of below-the-belt comments being made by both candidates. How do you see that impacting the psyche of voters as they head to the polling booths?
Sure. I think there's 2 ways to think about this election. The first is, if we were to go back 2 years ago and to look at where America was 2 years ago, it was at that point, we thought it was going to be Biden versus Trump, and the election was very, very close. National popular vote and in the swing states. 2 years later, even though it is now Trump versus Harris, we're in the exact same place. And the reason why I mention this is that we are an incredibly divided country in which there are very, very few undecided voters. But among those issues that seem to be important is that for some, especially Republicans, it's all about the economy specifically the price, let's say, of food and gasoline, and about immigration. For Democrats, especially female voters, the issue really seems to be abortion. And much in the same way, in 2022, for some voters, it was about the issue of abortion, some about the economy, and it kind of tipped towards abortion being the driving issue that brought women to the polls. That's where we are in 2024 right now, is that for those who consider themselves to be Democrats and for many independents, it really is first abortion or reproductive rights. For Republicans, it's the economy. And what we're going to see on election day is which of those two issues seems to be driving which voters to the polls. That's probably the defining way of thinking about it in terms of issues. But those issues are only a placeholder for a broader divide in America.
All right, David, thanks much for speaking to me on NDTV. We come back and talk on the election night and dissect some of those results. In fact, now let's shift focus and take a look at this conversation that I had with Hollywood actor Martin Sheen, the man who played president for many years in a famous TV show. What does he have to say about who should be the next president of United States? Take a look at this conversation. I am in conversation with Mr. Martin Sheen, one of the biggest names in Hollywood. Sir, you are here in at the rally here for Michelle Obama. How do you feel right now, 3 days before the election?
I feel great. I have not the slightest doubt she's going to win. The only concern we have is how the fascists will resign, or they probably won't resign, and that's our concern, how they'll react, that's all. But we know she's going to win.
Okay, but there are some reports that suggest that it's a really tight race.
Of course it's tight, yeah, but she's still going to win.
Okay.
And you saw the support here tonight. This is just one small section.
Yes.
But the energy and the commitment, and it's largely coming from women, and mostly young women, and they're coming from all over the country. Some from foreign countries to help in this election because they know it's at stake.
Yes.
It's not just our country, it's not just our democracy. The whole world is watching. The whole world is going to be affected by the results of November 5th. So we have great confidence that she's going to win, and that all of these so-called battleground states are going to come into her column. So,
what, according to you, is the single biggest issue in this election?
Democracy, freedom. It's very clearly the fight is democracy against the fascists. They're fascist. They believe.
Why do you say so?
Well, because it's very clear to anyone that loves democracy and that has any kind of level of humanity. We care about it. We may disagree with people, but we don't want to kill them. We don't want to hurt them. You know, we want to inspire them. We want to lift them up. We don't see any music. We don't see any poetry. We don't see any jizz. We don't see any kind of. There's just no sense of real joy in their lives, you know, following this fascist, he's changed so many lives away from the light. There's no light. There's no music. There's no joy. There's no humanity in them. There's anger and resentment. And they look at him and he reflects the very worst part of themselves. Eventually they're going to come to themselves and win their freedom, but they have to be responsible for the truth.
What happens
if
he wins?
Say again?
What happens if Donald Trump wins?
We fight in a different direction.
How?
He doesn't win. Well, you'll see if it happens. No, it doesn't stop. You don't just, terminate 300 years of 250 years of democracy because of a fascist. We've fought fascists before. It's costly, but we're not going to quit. We're just fighting in a different direction. So there. All right. All the best.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank you so much,
Okay,
Mr. Sheen.
bye-bye.
That is one of the biggest names in Hollywood. Remember, it was the Hollywood that started the entire process of Joe Biden making way for Kamala Harris. And just 3 days before the election, you heard some of the biggest names here coming in support of Kamala Harris at Michelle Obama's rally to get the last punch going. In Philadelphia for NDTV, this is Gauri Dwivedi. All right, that of course was some of the biggest voices you heard on the show. But how does America really vote its president? How does it add up? It's a complicated Electoral College process. Take a look at this report that tells you and breaks that entire election process down for you.
Established in 1787, the Founding Fathers created the Electoral College as a compromise between electing the president by a vote in Congress and by popular vote. In the college, each state has a set number of electors based on its congressional representation, senators, and House members. There are 538 electors total. Most states allocate all their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the majority of the popular vote in that state. Maine and Nebraska are the only exceptions with their proportional allocation. A candidate needs a majority of at least 270 electoral votes to claim the presidency. It is important to note that the college is not free of controversies. Candidates can win the presidency without winning the popular vote. We have seen this in the elections of 1824, 1876, 1888, 2000, and as recent as 2016 when Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton despite securing less votes. This sparks debates about fairness and representation. Campaigns focus intensely on a handful of swing states where the outcome is uncertain, often leaving out voters in states deemed safe for one party. While some advocate for abolishing the Electoral College in favor of a direct popular vote, arguing it would enhance democratic legitimacy, supporters claim it protects smaller states' interests and ensures a broader national campaign. So, what's the bottom line? The Electoral College is a fascinating blend of historical compromise and modern contention. As elections loom, the debate rages on. Is it a cornerstone of democracy or an outdated relic? Buckle up, the story is far from over. Bureau Report for NDTV World.
All right, let's listen in to a very interesting conversation I had with Dr. Salman Akhtar, who's been in Pennsylvania for 51 years. Salman Akhtar on politics and poetry. Listen in. This is a very special conversation on NDTV with Dr. Salman Akhtar, who's a world-renowned psychiatrist, author of 113 books, someone who has seen US politics for over 50 years, and someone who also writes on a variety of issues. Thank you so much, Dr. Akhtar, for speaking to NDTV. I'm going to come to your book that you've written in just a bit, but let me start by asking you that we're in Pennsylvania, a state that is considered to be pretty much decisive when it comes to the US election results. How do you view the election right now, the issues on which the Indian Americans are set to vote, and most importantly, the American politics right now as it stands?
Let me answer your comment or respond to it in reverse order. One about the current American politics. I've been in this country now 51 years, and I've never seen and never experienced this country as so divided socially, politically, and such. The country is actually really, really divided, and very strongly in terms of ideology, in terms of feelings, in terms of sense of identity, belonging, philosophy of life, attitude towards minorities, etc., etc. So it's a very strongly emotional election. All elections are emotional. All elections are fundamentally divisive because they say elect A or elect B.
Right.
But those divisions are ideational. Now the divisions are powerfully emotional and almost vitriolic and potentially violent. So it's a very, very powerful and significant moment in American politics.
That, of course, was Salman Akhtar telling the importance of the American elections happening at a time when one thing that everybody has said in the last couple of days that I've been here is that the country is deeply divided. They're either a hardcore Republican even women, who do not wish to support Kamala Harris because they're a hardcore Republican, they do that. And then there are those who are hardcore Democrat supporters, and doesn't matter that Kamala Harris hasn't given a clear answer to what will be her foreign policy, what will be her economic policy, and why she hasn't provided answers to a very ineffective immigration program under her watch as vice president. So what one can say, being here in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, that this place, this very state, will give the answer as to who will be the next president of the United States. But we're not going to know till the last vote is counted, given how tight this race is. But we are going to keep giving you all the very latest and all details from US Ground Zero. With that, we wrap up this edition of US Election Watch. Thanks so much for watching.